Welcome to today's session of Around the Water Cooler. I'm your host for today. My name's David Savage. Today's session is all about analytics and reporting within IT financial management and deciphering data for business action. To help me do that, I'm joined by two guests, Russ from AstraZeneca and Alex from ServiceWare. I'll get the two of you to introduce yourselves in just a second, but to frame the conversation for those watching, IT financial management, the primary function is to effectively reduce costs for a business to operate as successfully as possible. Analytics and reporting information providing a plethora of data and insight into business operations. So plenty for us to get our teeth stuck into over the next 20 minutes or so, and some questions around that. But before we do dive into those questions, as I said, love you two to introduce yourselves. You'll probably do a far better job of it than I would. So Russ, what do you do for AstraZeneca?
Hi there, I'm Russ Smith. I'm the head of enabling units, IT at AstraZeneca. I lead a team of about 500 technologists in 9 locations around the world, and I serve the enabling functions of AstraZeneca. So most of you will know things like finance, HR, legal, compliance, and those are the areas that I look after.
Thank you very much. And you've joined us quite early in the morning because you're over in the States at the minute. So thank you for making some time pre-breakfast.
Pre-breakfast, post-coffee, indeed.
Well, I would hope post-coffee. And Alex, you're over in Germany, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm located here near Frankfurt in our headquarters of ServiceWare in Idstein. I'm Alex Becker. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of ServiceWare. We are a service management software vendor who specializes particularly in IT financial management solutions. And in the role of COO, I have the pleasure of overseeing all our client engagements in that space, introducing ITFM and technology business management solutions at the clients from a steering perspective. So happy to share my experiences today.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you both for your time. This first question, I'll dive into it and go to you, Russell, first. I think given that you're talking about looking after a team of 500 across 9 different locations there, you mentioned a number of different business functions as well. Many businesses are being challenged to do more with less. And to set the scene for today's conversation, I suppose it'd be really interesting to know, or to see whether or not you can answer that age-old question of what business value does IT offer the business? And I suppose explain why it's more relevant than ever.
Yeah, totally relevant. Value should be driving the majority of decisions and prioritization. So for me, the business value should be the first question that any IT professional should ask before undertaking any piece of work, because without that appreciation, it's impossible to do prioritization and ensure that my IT organization is putting all of its efforts into the right areas. And we should be discarding those pieces of work that don't have any perceived value. So for me, with the first question I will always ask my business counterparts is, what is the value? What is the impact? And if they're not able to give me that at a high level in super quick time, I know there's probably something that we need to delve a little bit deeper into. Gone are the days for me in IT where you could afford to go out and do proof of concept or the more trendy proof of value type exercises, because they all consume valuable time and effort, which is often forgotten. Everyone focuses on, well, we're not paying for the software, therefore it's free. But it's not, because people take time and effort. So nothing is really free. So for me, it's about understanding and articulating the value with our business areas and helping them to prioritize which work we should do first.
Alex, interesting there that kind of time and effort is mentioned and prioritization. You're obviously dealing with external customers. Do you think that's something that they are grasping sufficiently at the moment?
Well, there's always room for improvement, right? But I think, like Russ rightfully said, it's core to the prioritization to know the answer to the question, what's the business value of IT? And what I've seen with many clients in the recent years, there have been a lot of digitization initiatives. Obviously, a lot of IT projects have been kicked off. And let me phrase it like this. I'm not always sure if there was a clear value case behind it. And in times of good economy and a good investment climate, then that sometimes is not the most important. But now looking at, unfortunately, what looks like a recession to hit the global economy, I think particular CFOs will ask much tougher questions on business cases for digitization initiatives. for running ones or maybe for new ones. So I think it will be much tougher to get the funding for an IT project. And it looked like in recent times, I just have to argue, well, it somehow adds to the big theme of digitization. So let's go and do it. That's what I've seen with several clients happening. And I'm pretty sure the questions asked will be tougher before budgets get assigned and approved. And the justification need to be much more solid maybe than it had been. That's a change that I now see in IT project investments with our clients. And therefore, it's important to be able to answer this question.
So if the questions are getting tougher from the CFO, do you think that people really are they able to really kind of describe that value? I mean, it's all very well saying technology is valuable to the business, but do you think that they have really kind of zeroed in on what it is that they are offering their business, or is that still something that a lot have to articulate?
Yeah, I think we've seen a maturity journey. So the topic of being able to justify, analyze the IT spend is nothing that's now coming up new. It's something that I would say for the last decade has come up as a more and more important theme in IT management. So to take besides the important technology aspect, always a commercial aspect with it. And the CIOs and all the management teams, I think, have become much more savvy. Also with the notion of technology business management as an important framework in this area becoming more and more common, understood, and adopted, right? So I see increasing maturity, but I also see many organizations still struggle with providing an answer quickly in time on these tough questions.
So, Ross, look, just in your opinion, if the industry is maturing, what is clouding judgment? What is stopping an organization understanding the value that's offered?
I think it's the complexity. If you look at the chain from the technical piece, a piece of hardware and software, up until the real impact to a business process, that's not an easy 1-2 step. That's often a 6, 7, 8, 10 step causal chain and build up of what we call a value chain, so that you can really see if I spend X amount on a certain piece of technology, where is the impact on my business? That's not trivial, yeah. And therefore, that's clouding, as you say, the visibility.
No, Alex is obviously offering that perspective again of the broader market. Russ, is what he's describing there something that you see in your own organization? Are those the barriers? Are those the challenges that you're having to work through?
I think there's several ways you can look at describing the value when you talk to your CFO. I'm actually seeing an emerging theme of stuff that you just have to do. So in the world today, for example, data sovereignty is driving huge amounts of work that we need to do, for example, in terms of international data transfers, how we transfer data in and out of China. It's not just the EU anymore. We're seeing much more projects that you just have to do, and it's the cost of doing business. Because if you don't do it, you can't operate in those markets. And for us, those are pretty big markets. I'm seeing a sort of clump of work that you have to do. That's one example. The other example, of course, is lifecycle management of your software. End of life. We're a highly regulated industry. So there's just some upgrades you have to do if you want to stay in a license to operate agenda. So that's one chunk of work I'm seeing increasing, particularly around privacy and ethics. That's a big growth area. Then the other area is the stuff that Alex was talking about, which is how do you actually demonstrate value for those investments? And the start point for that is always understanding the true cost. And that's quite difficult because everyone focuses on what's the software cost. You have all of the underlying costs for running the solution after you've even implemented it. It's actually very difficult to estimate sometimes. What's the level of support needed? What's the level of tickets that you have to do? What's the hosting or the hardware that it's being placed upon? What's the impact of inflation upon software year on year? I mean, I don't think many IT professionals were worrying too much about inflation up until about 12 months ago, but I bet you they're all now looking at their contracts to see how that impacts their renewals. So I think it's a difficult work, but at the end of the day, most mature IT organizations will be looking at total value and total impact and making the decisions based upon those. I think the days are gone of business cases really being an argument to agree investment rather than a true business case end to end for the life cycle of whatever it is you're implementing.
Well, let's stick on this theme, Russ, if you don't mind me kind of diving into this in more detail, because you talk there about data sovereignty, and you talk about the potential for growth. Obviously, lots of businesses are leaning towards data-driven decision-making. What are the next steps to practically translate that into business strategy that people should be aware of?
Well, for me, any good business should be primarily making data-driven decisions or evidence-based decisions right now. If they haven't been doing up to now, they've been quite lucky in their market, I would say. For me, the data doesn't necessarily drive the business strategy, but it should support and accelerate the delivery of that strategy. The key for me is understanding the data that you need to collect and understanding its accuracy and value. Because I talk quite a lot about the fact that just finding the data you need to make those decisions is probably the easy part. Actually making sure that it's complete and accurate and valuable, that's actually quite difficult. And there's usually multiple steps that follow that. And this is where partnership with the business is really important for me. So the business context and knowledge that you have to apply to that data to turn it from information into insights, insights into action, action into actual impact. And I use that word a lot, impact. That's where the partnership for me is essential. And then you need to continue to track progress and iterate as well, because it's very rare that the problem that you're solving and the strategy you're implementing is ever going to be static in today's world. So for me, there's almost a continual cycle of review and plan, do, check, action at the back end of that.
So Alex, from ServiceWare's perspective, the companies that you're talking to, is their data complete? Is it accurate?
The honest answer is no, and also the scary truth is it will never be. But that's not an argument to not work with it. I often see this as an argument that's put forward, or we can't do this or that because we don't have the perfect data. Obviously, the target is to have high quality data, but I think particularly also when it comes to IT cost management, if you have 80% clarity. What you spend, why do you spend it, what are you spending it on? It's better than having no transparency. So you see certain relations, orders of magnitudes, you can draw conclusions, you can find optimization potential. And what I've seen with clients, it's a maturity journey to start working with the analysis, and even know what you don't know helps you to improve, right? So I've never met somebody, and would also not claim it for ourselves with ServiceWare. So we are rather a mid-sized company. We also have our challenges with data that's not complete or incorrect or duplicates. That's I think a side effect with the big volumes of data we have to cope with. And we cannot ignore or wish it should be perfect. I think you should work with it, and while working with it, you can improve it. And it also helps to know where you have gaps. It's not a shame.
You say there, it's not a shame. You shouldn't be ashamed to know where you've got gaps, and knowing what you don't know is almost as important as understanding fully. Is that understood in the boardroom? Is that understood by the CFO? Going back to those challenging questions and then wanting to make sure that I suppose they're getting a return on their investment. That could cause some level of concern, right?
Yeah. Well, my feeling is it is often understood in the boardroom. It is more a challenge in the middle management, because people are afraid to say, hey, I have a gap. There's something I don't know. It depends on the culture, obviously, but particularly when we talk about financial management and controlling, the people working in this function, by their nature, they have a very high quality aspiration. They want to deliver 100% perfect numbers. So it's often a difficulty working with the operational teams, taking awareness fear that I have the concern that the CFO is not understanding that you might have gaps, or will tolerate it. If you present a good analysis and say there's a certain risk because we have certain uncertainty in data, and this is maybe the range where it could be wrong, but still you draw a good conclusion. I've never experienced to get a back feedback, but people are often scared to take that step on a perhaps incomplete data set.
So Ross, Alex is there describing that perhaps people might be scared, but is also describing a situation where there's a lot more transparency. So I suppose, what's the biggest obstacles when implementing data when implementing this level of transparency? Is it people? Is it technology? Where do you think that the efforts need to be placed from people like yourselves and your peer group?
I actually wholeheartedly agree with what Alex said. For me, the biggest barrier is the fear of transparency. People need to get comfortable about being uncomfortable with their data, because when you create that transparency, you invariably expose flaws and gaps in your data. And that's a good thing. It will lead to difficult questions, but they will help you further improve and sort of refine the data. Some people, unfortunately, prefer to live in what I sometimes call blissful ignorance, but that's a false economy, because eventually it will catch up with you. And actually that concept of being comfortable being uncomfortable with your data was actually part of a presentation I did to the senior leaders of AstraZeneca in a digital workshop quite recently. And you need to work at that level down, like Alex said. It's not everyone gets it in the boardroom, right? Everyone gets it. It's when you move 2 or 3 levels down, people need to understand that it's okay that your data needs to be cleaned. It's not okay to ignore it.
So let's kind of fast forward, I suppose, the evolution or implementation rather of these strategies. When the obstacles have been overcome, the strategies and the actions have been taken, what should the end result look like? And I suppose I'll go to Alex first with this, because maybe you've got some clients where they're at that place. What are the main benefits of the analytics and reporting within IT financial management and deciphering the data for business action?
I think my target vision is basically to enable technology management to act entrepreneurial, or I would say it's like a company in the company, the IT or shared service department should have like a profit and loss view on what they are doing. Yeah? And if I enable with the data a manager to take the right decision, yeah, and allow them to have transparency on what's the cost, but also what's the value. And I fully agree with Russ, it's not necessarily always a return on investment in a euro or dollar. It could also be a bigger business impact, a compliance topic, a security topic, which is very important in the current times. But if they have the proper data, they can take the right actions. And then the organization is self-sufficient, right? So because you can trust in the people making the right decisions because they have the right data. And that's my ultimate goal, also with what we provide as ServiceWare, to enable the managers in the organization to have the transparency to take the right decisions, right? That is my vision.
I mean, Ross, when we started this, you mentioned that you were in Berlin yesterday, you're in the States today near Washington, seeing some of your teams for the first time in 2 years. When we're talking about what the end result should look like, and so much of this appears to be around helping your teams understand where they need to be at from a people point of view. How important has it been for you to be able to get out and meet people again?
Hugely important. Relationships for me are one of the key facets of IT leadership that's often underestimated. Everyone focuses on the technology, but actually the relationships with your team, understanding their capabilities, helping them develop, helping them move with the business areas towards common goals is best achieved in person, in my opinion. And as a result, getting to actually talk and whiteboard with people, be less transactional. Like we're all sort of, we've had 2 years of Zoom that's agenda-driven, transactional, face via video, right? Actually getting into a room with people and talking about areas that maybe not scripted is vastly efficient, in my opinion, and drive some really good, innovative and different ways of approaching problems.
Do you feel that your teams, therefore, because if they've been zoomed in, and it's a terrible pun, but if they have been zoomed in for the last couple of years, do they understand what the end result should look like?
In the context of what we're talking about here, I think they will understand that the preferred outcome is a cultural partnership with the business and the data that underlies it. That for me is the end point. It's that virtual circle that I talked about earlier on. It's about us and the business understanding that you go from data to information to insights to action to impact, and then at the end, review back to the beginning, right? That for me is the cycle that we should be looking at with any amount of data, and actually using that sort of evidence-based approach to decision making. One of the things that it really does well is it removes emotion from any decision, because the data and the facts are evidence. And as a result, you can have a much richer conversation, in my opinion, with your business areas to talk about what you should do and, more importantly, what you shouldn't do. And it's not based upon I like project X or I love product Y. It's actually about what is the data telling us that we can achieve if we go ahead and do this piece of work. And that for me is it. That is really where I'd like to get to.
I don't know what your experience is. I often see that the starting position is even worse, that the discussion is also about which data is right or wrong. Yeah? So instead of spending meetings discussing on the impact, what you just did, the time is spent on first aligning who has the right data, what's the right figure, what's the right source system. Yeah? And I think we need to enable the people, obviously, to avoid this discussion. There needs to be a single source of truth and clarity. But I see a lot of time in organizations is spent on debating what's the correct data before even that cycle you so well described can start, right?
I'd actually, the way I would deal with that is I'll play my cycle in reverse. I start the conversation with what is the impact that you want to achieve. And then you can reverse engineer the action that you need, the insights that you need. And then that leads you back to what data is it that you need. Starting at the other end, as you said, can often lead to those emotional discussions because the transparency has created that uncomfortable view that the data isn't quite there yet.
Both of you have been wonderfully articulate in describing this journey that a lot of organizations have been going, are going on at the moment. But if we take it back as a final point to that nascent stage where you're being challenged to do more with less, a lot of the barriers, a lot of the obstacles are still in place. I would just love you both to describe one piece of insight from your own experiences that you would try and impart to someone who's at the start of this journey to think about that you think will help them in good stead in making sure that they can deliver successfully.
I mean, for me, there's three key questions I often ask myself as an IT leader on any of these sort of journeys, if you like. Number one is relevance. What is the relevance of me and my organization to actually solve the business problem and achieve the required impact, which in our case is basically impact for our patients? That's question one I ask myself. I then ask myself, do I have the right relationships in place to make this happen? And that's the business and IT relationship. And that for me is key. And then the last thing I always ask myself, is my third R, if you like, is do I have the right resource and capability? Do I have the right team at the table, both from my own side and from my business areas as well, to achieve those outcomes? Because great people make great teams, make great things happen. I repeat that time and time again to my own team as well. And the power of people is often underestimated by technologists. We're dazzled by shiny toys. So relevance, relationships, and resource are the three questions I continue to ask myself as I go down any path with my business area and talk about value that we deliver.
Brilliant. Thank you, Russ. And Alex, a final word from you in ServiceWare?
Yeah, the advice I would give is try to think of the company as an internal marketplace. Yeah? And the business is the customer of IT, and IT is a provider of its own or a company of its own. And if you think in that market logic, then you need to put a price tag to your product. Yeah? So what is the cost of what I deliver? And if the business is willing to pay for it, the customer is willing to pay for it, then there needs to be a value. And if it's not willing to pay for it, then maybe something is wrong with the value or the price is too high. And if you think in such a logic and say this is like an internal marketplace, and IT is selling a good, which is technology, digital enablement, whatever you put to it, and then you discuss on an eye level with the business whether this customer is willing to pay for it or at which price, that often brings a totally different mindset. Yeah? Then most IT departments I currently see, which only say, okay, we get some requirements we need to deliver. So if you want to change around the notion of IT, you need to change around your way how you approach it. That would be my advice.
Look, thank you both very much for your time. Russ, enjoy your breakfast. Alex, enjoy lunch. And thank you for helping us to unpack analytics and reporting within IT financial management. Thank you for taking the time to join us today on the CIO Watercooler TV for this Around the Watercooler session. Please stay on the website, have a look around. There is plenty more content for you to enjoy.